So I'm mortified because my parents are in the house today and I'm running out of days to film this because I'm gonna have to edit it for like 3 days because this is gonna be a long video. So I have to record with my parents in the house and I don't like doing that because I'm weird about it. I don't know. So if I talk quieter this video, that's why, because also they have stomach flu. So picture this. You're being hunted for 5 years by something only you can see. Now this sounds like a horror movie, right? Well, unfortunately, it's the reality for a lot of people with psychosis. Now, obviously these things are not real, but to someone in psychosis, they are very real. People with psychosis live in a whole different reality sometimes. How should I know? I was in psychosis for 5 years. Basically, that's the topic of today's video. I'm gonna give you a masterclass on psychosis from someone who experienced extreme psychosis and is still recovering from it. But before we do anything, I need to introduce myself. My name is Toby and I'm part of the Squishy system. I'm the main psychosis holder, which means I exhibit the most traits of psychosis. But that's not important today. I just wanted to tell you that we are a system and we post a lot of content like this. So if you'd like this video or find it useful in any way, feel free to subscribe because we put out a lot of similar videos. Alright, let's get into this before my phone runs out of memory. So this video is going to be divided into 4 parts. A basic rundown of psychosis and its symptoms, how to cope with psychosis, how outsiders might be able to help, and what is life after exiting a psychosis episode. So you might have seen psychosis portrayed as someone with delusions, hallucinations, something like that, typically very angry, scary, violent even. But that's just not the case for most people with psychosis. Most people with psychosis are a danger to themselves more than they are to anyone else. Psychosis is a very isolating illness, it has a lot of symptoms that can only be felt internally, and the thing about psychosis is that it's such a wide array of symptoms that there's no 2 psychoses that look the exact same, and that's why it's so hard to treat. Do not use this video to self-diagnose, but here are some symptoms of psychosis. I'm just gonna read them off. If I have something to say, I'm gonna stop and explain it, but yeah. Disorganized thoughts, delusions, which we'll get into the types of delusions that one can experience, and there are quite a few. Hallucinations, which we are also going to get into. Disorganized speech, isolating yourself, intense feelings with almost no backing behind them. Insomnia, apathy, which can manifest in a lot of different ways. It really depends on what is causing the psychosis, like if it's a personality disorder, if it's schizophrenia or something like that, it really depends. Anxiety, demotivation, paranoia, random crying, which sucks, it's super embarrassing. Pacing, which is more of an OCD type symptom, where you physically cannot stop because you feel such a strong compulsion to do so. And self-harm behaviors. Not all of these will manifest in a person with psychosis, but a lot of times at least half of them will. There are some symptoms of psychosis that are less experienced than other symptoms. If you get your psychosis from OCD, you might have more compulsions instead of delusions. If it comes from a personality disorder, then you might have more delusions of grandeur than you might have compulsive behaviors. Now, one of the main symptoms of psychosis is delusions. It's one of the hallmark symptoms. I was in a delusion that completely consumed my life for about 5 years, so I can tell you, it sucks, and you never want to be in it, but you don't realize that it's happening until it's too late. A lot of times people with delusions can't be convinced and have to be forced into institutions where they can realize that they are in psychosis. And that is another reason why so many psychotic people don't function well in society, because they live in a completely different reality than someone who is, I don't want to say normal, because normal is not a thing, but someone who is not experiencing delusions. So what is a delusion? Well, there are several different types, but typically a delusion is just an altered state of thinking that is not possible or based in reality. Some types of delusions are persecutory delusions, which is when you believe you are being hunted by something or something is stalking you. Thought broadcasting, which is when you believe that your thoughts are literally being broadcasted and other people can read your mind. This one sucks, but it's kind of common. It's common for people with OCD. Grandiose delusions, which are the typical like I'm the son of God type of delusions, that convince you to do unsafe things because you think you're immortal, or you think you're strong, or you think you're like the chosen one. A lot of times these types of delusions get portrayed in media, a loose cannon trying to fight, attack, whatever. And while this can be true, a lot of times people with delusions of grandeur are very dangerous to no one but themselves. Another type of delusion is thought insertion, where someone believes that a thought is being implanted in their mind by some outward force. Kind of like thought broadcasting, but almost the opposite. Erotomanic delusions are delusions that stem from love, hence eroto. These delusions are usually when someone's like in love with a celebrity or believes a celebrity is in love with them. It doesn't have to be a celebrity, but think like
Hello,
Daniel Larson.
my name is
if you
Daniel
know
Larson.
him, you know what I'm talking about. Daniel Larson is a man from Colorado who recently got arrested on federal charges of doing some unsavory things, and he has a belief that he is dating Grace VanderWaal, a child star who is now an adult, I may add, who got famous from America's Got Talent, who has never spoken to him. It got so bad that he genuinely believes this, and because, he was an internet phenomenon, he was trolled into believing that he actually was with Grace VanderWaal. This is the worst case scenario of erotomanic delusions. So if you see someone with erotomanic delusions, don't lead them on, don't, tell them that they're lying or something, because they're not going to believe you anyway, and it might just put them in a vulnerable position. Ultimately, with all delusions, you need to get the person in psychosis to a mental professional and probably put them in an institution, as sucky as that sounds, but most of the time that's the only way they can snap out of it anyway. A lot of times these delusions come with hallucinations, sometimes that affirm psychosis. Like for me, I thought I was being hunted, and I would hallucinate people knocking on the walls, knocking on the doors, knocking on my window, and sometimes I would see people running past that I thought were going to get me. 100% of the time, it is not real. I still get scared that someone's outside my window, but now I have the coping mechanisms to see that that is not true. But there are actually a lot of hallucination types, 7 to be exact, and we're gonna go through them real quick. There's auditory hallucinations, is just when you hear words, demands, voices in general, like voices telling you to hurt people or voices telling you you're a bad person, just voices. It can be whispers that you can't understand, which is my main type. It can be knocks. It can be knocks on windows, knocks on doors, people walking. A lot of people with schizophrenia have voices in their head telling them to do bad things. And of course, no one wants to do the bad things because people with psychosis are not evil, obviously. They're just in a world of hurt. A lot of times with these audio hallucinations, there is visual hallucinations. Like I mentioned, I saw people walking past when I would hear these knocks and things. Not all people with auditory hallucinations have visual hallucinations though, so be mindful of that. Visual hallucinations can be extremely scary. I hate visual hallucinations. And the worst part is you are thinking as you're hallucinating that's 100% real. So one time I saw a man standing in my kitchen. I was like, and didn't respond, didn't say anything. Eventually it went away, but it was really scary. Another hallucination that really fucked me up was I had hallucinations starting when I was 13, 12, which is highly unusual, and that's why it sucked so much because no one believed me. But I was sitting in bed, it was 2 in the morning, I was watching YouTube, and I look up and there's this shadow person standing at the edge of my bed. He crouched down and he grabbed my foot. I felt it, which is another type of hallucination that we're about to get into. And then he just dissolved into the dark. And I was like, hey, what the fuck? I screamed so loud, but no one heard me because it was 2 a.m. So that sucked. I will never forget that because it was one of the most terrifying things to ever happen to me. But that was with another type of hallucination known as a tactile hallucination, when you feel things on you. This is common for sexual assault victims. They'll feel hands where they were assaulted. I have that, but to a lesser extent than the other two. It's really creepy. They're presence hallucinations, which is when you have the overwhelming feeling that someone is watching you or someone is in the room with you. And it's a feeling that you can't shake. Like, it's stuck with you. It causes overwhelming dread, overwhelming fear, and you know logically that there's no one there because you can't see them, but in your mind it's like, oh my god, they are behind me. There's olfactory hallucinations, which some psychologists don't believe exist, but basically it's when you smell things that aren't there. I don't experience this, so I can't give like a first-hand experience, but apparently some people hallucinate fire, gas leaks, poo, stuff like that. There's gustatory, I think I'm saying that right, gustatory hallucinations, which are common with people who have epilepsy, and that is when you taste something that's not there. Again, I don't have much to go off with this one. And finally, this one I'm not too sure about. Some sites listed it as a type of hallucination, some sites listed it as a neurological condition, but it's proprioceptive, and it makes you feel like your body is moving when it's not. Some sites said it was a symptom of narcolepsy, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and apparently the doctors don't know either. Okay. So what does a delusion feel like? Not good. So a delusion feels like you're fine one day, and suddenly you just get this overwhelming entire body sense of dread and fear. And you think, oh, that's interesting, that's new, I wonder why that is. And slowly that feeling becomes more and more intense. And so you get to the point where it's like, oh yeah, that's just the overwhelming dread. And then slowly thoughts get introduced into your brain where it's like, for me, it was like this feeling, someone is after me. And the thoughts slowly got bigger and bigger, and the paranoia just got larger and larger. And it was slow enough to where I didn't realize what was happening, which delusions do slowly take hold. It's not like one day you wake up, I'm the son of God. No, it takes a lot of time, and a lot of times with delusions, people will take random daily events and use it to affirm the delusions. And as you become more and more paranoid, more and more scared, you start seeing things that are going wrong, and you link everything in your life to this delusion. It completely engulfs you, and it's everything you think about, and it changes your life because you can never think the same way again. It literally changes your brain chemistry. A lot of times, people with delusions may never snap out of it if they don't get treatment, and people with delusions aren't particularly receptive to treatment because it takes away from their delusion that they've been living in for God knows how long. So if you try to get them into treatment, there's a chance they'll resist it, and if they're an adult, then you really can't help them at that point. I'm lucky because they caught it when I was a child, but you slowly feel the delusion that you don't know is a delusion. It just becomes your reality. And the reactions to these delusions can be starting substance abuse, self-harm, cutting off all your friends and family, doing reckless things, you run into the streets naked, weird shit like that. You stop being able to sleep, you stop being able to eat. Everything is about the delusion all the time. You lose friends, you lose family, you lose everything except the delusion. And if no one steps in to help you, then you might eventually end your life. So if you figure out you're in a delusion, great. Someone helps you, even better. But there are certain ways you have to go about coping with your delusions. A lot of times people with delusions will slip back into delusions and they don't even realize it. I mean, someone from the outside, someone like a family member or a friend needs to come in and do something called a reality check. Reality checks can be dangerous for people involved because people with delusions don't typically want to be taken out of the delusion. And like I said, they do things to affirm the delusion that are dangerous, scary, just bad. And the person in delusions might lash out because you are directly challenging their beliefs. It's like if someone came and was like, the sky's purple, and you see the sky is blue, you're like, no, I don't think the sky's purple. I don't think so. And so you can see how it would be really difficult to work with that. So what I recommend is only do reality checking in small intervals. I did a whole post about this on my Instagram, so if you're interested, you can check that out. So do it in small increments and be very, very gentle. Let's use an example. If they're telling you the sky is purple, you go, okay, can we check on the sky later and get you to a doctor? Because I think you might be burning up. Use a different, don't lie to them about where you're going, but lie to them on why you might be there. It's for their own safety. Because, if you say, I'm going to the doctor to get you checked in for a mental hospital, they're going to be like, hey, what the fuck? But if you, introduce it, yeah, we're going to go to the doctor. I just need to get checked out for something, and I'd appreciate it if you come along. And then once they're in the mental institution, then be like, hey, why don't you tell them about this? I think they think the sky might be purple too. And it seems really fucked up, and it seems really awful, but sometimes that's the only way you're gonna get someone to a mental professional. It's the only way I got to a mental professional. I was like, hey, we need to go to the doctor. I think you're really depressed. And it's like, okay, whatever, fine. If you can't take them to a doctor immediately, then you can slowly reality check them into going to the doctor. And oh, the sky is purple, whatever. We should get a second opinion. And it's like, okay, whatever. And if they say no, then don't make them scared. It's really hard and it really sucks, and it's really a case-by-case thing. But I'm just telling you, you have to be careful. Delusional people don't want to be challenged. Another thing you can do is try to ground the patient. I don't want to call them a patient because it's weird, but that is what they are. They're a patient. Now, grounding is kind of the same as reality checking, but it's for disassociation. And for me, it doesn't really work, but I think that's just because I'm on enough medication to where my brain doesn't I'm never grounded. I'm always feeling a little weird. I haven't felt grounded in years, but that's because I'm mentally ill. I did a whole video on it 2 months ago, so you can yeah. Now, if you're delusional and you realize you're delusional but you can't figure out what to do about it, I recommend seeing a psychiatrist, because there are medications for that. Psychosis can be treated by antipsychotics, a wonderful invention that has saved my life. These side effects do suck a lot though, but it's kind of like you pick your poison. You either be delusional and not function in daily life, or you feel a little and you function in daily life. In conjunction with mood stabilizers and antidepressants, it can actually be super helpful for regulating psychosis and for regulating mood symptoms that come with psychosis. No one will have the same reaction to the same combinations of medications because everyone's brain chemistry is different. Literally, that's what makes us human. Antipsychotics help lower your dopamine release, which if dopamine is the reason psychosis happens. So what these antipsychotics do is block those receptors so that your dopamine levels go down, and while they don't cure psychosis, they make it a lot easier to manage. To get antipsychotics, you need to go to a psychiatrist, be evaluated. There are a lot of hoops you have to jump through, but if you have good insurance, even if you don't have good insurance, if you're psychotic, you need therapy and a psychiatrist, because you're gonna need them, I fear. And while one day we all hope for a cure for mental illness, that day has not happened yet, so get on your meds. And something else that is really important to do is to reach out. You can't fight psychosis alone. It's a beast. It is awful. It will destroy your life. So what you need to do, no matter how isolating or wanting to isolate you get or feel, you have to reach for help. Humans are inherently community-building creatures. We survive by sticking together. Here's some tips for that. If you're psychotic, I recommend telling immediate family and friends and getting a therapist, and that's it. You don't want to go around telling everyone, because most people aren't going to react well, unfortunately. Tabitha, what are you doing? I lost all my friends by telling them I had psychosis. And it sucks. It really does, because then COVID hit. Trauma dumping. And immediate family are, even if they react poorly, they still probably will help you, and you can't fight the battle alone. And if you're trying to help someone who's in psychosis, I wouldn't call like 911 or anything like that. Maybe 988. I called 988 once and it sucked, so but don't freak them out by being like, oh my god, what are you gonna do? You're gonna kill us? That does not help. It makes it worse, actually, so don't do that. And ultimately, you can't fix them. They have to do the work themselves, because you are not in their body. You are not in their brain. You can't fix it. And ultimately, you can't fix anything, because you're your own person. You, just like how you can't fix someone's depression, or you can't heal a wound for someone, you also can't heal mental illness, because you just can't. So after you get treatment for psychosis, after you snap out of it, what are you gonna do with your life? Well, your life will literally never be the same. So here's some things that, will change. So first off, you'll be battling that anxiety and paranoia for the rest of your life, I'm afraid to say. And while it's not going to be as intense, it's always going to be in the back of your mind. Because, it's literally altered your brain chemistry. You're a different person now. And with taking antipsychotics, it changed your brain chemistry even more. You're never going to be the person you were before psychosis again. And another thing you need to do is recognize hallucinations and just move on. It's really difficult, and some people with schizophrenia who experience really vivid hallucinations, they set up security cameras around their house and that they can look at to make sure there's nothing there. I like to use my phone camera because it's easy. Be honest about your struggles, because no one can help you if they don't know what's going on. It's really easy to fall into that isolation trap again. Just start talking. Never shut up. If you need to talk for the rest of time, then do it, because slipping back into psychosis is terrifying. It's awful. Another thing you can do is avoid and handle triggers, which is harder than it seems, because you can't completely cut out every single psychosis trigger. Just like you can't cut out every single anxiety trigger, you have to learn how to manage your emotions, how to manage your thought processes. Just manage. Keep what is called a grounding kit handy, which I made a video on. It was actually my first video, so check it out. I'll link it if I remember. Probably won't, not gonna lie. Just take a deep breath and find a way to get away from the trigger. And I promise, no one wants to hurt you, no one wants to harm you. The world is surprisingly lame. The chances that something bad is gonna happen, pretty low. Yeah, there are shitty moments, but the chances that someone's gonna run out the forest and attack you are actually extremely low. And a weird final tip I have is get a pet, because there are a lot of pets in shelters, and pets are surprisingly really helpful for psychosis. First off, pets are proven to lower heart rate, lower anxiety. They're companions. They can tell you if a hallucination is real or not, because if they don't react, then it's a hallucination. And they're just cute, alright? They're just great, and they're just wonderful little creatures. Which I know that's a weird note to end the video on, but that's where I'm ending the video. I hope this helped you in some way. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you have a suggestion for a video. My name is Toby, and I will talk to you guys later.